Hello and welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Fart of the Cast. I am Farfa. This is Yosh.
Hello.
We've got a bit of a delayed episode this week, as you may or may not have noticed. We unfortunately skipped last week. Just too many things clashing with each other, and it was just really busy after YCS Lima. So apologies for that.
I wasn't home the entire week. I got home on like Friday night. So
yeah, it's been busy. Apologies for that, but it is what it is. So let's jump into today. We're going to be talking about a little bit of TCG. There's a whole new Master Duel pack. So there's just a lot of stuff to mention. We could begin probably with your horrible reaction to my combo deck video. Where
you mean my great reaction to your horrible take?
So the context is Josh reacted to one of my videos and just completely hid my face on screen.
Okay, that was not. Oh yeah, that was not on purpose though. I just didn't notice.
Okay, you just didn't notice that I wasn't physically present. But anyway,
I was watching your video.
So yeah, we can talk about that real quick. So pretty much, I had a little rant after looking at a tweet on the internet, which is of course the best way to become enraged. Yes. Essentially saying that I pretty much came away with the conclusion that if you don't like all-in wombo combo decks, then maybe Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't the game for you. And I guess you think that's a bad take and that's unreasonable? Would you like to share?
I mean, the way it sounded in the video was just like you looking at a Ubel end board, and you're just like, okay, if you have a problem with this, then you should quit.
I think in a nutshell, I would say that my opinion is that for years, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has had wombo combo decks that go all in and poo and boom boom boom. I think that if you don't like that playstyle, then maybe Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't the game for you, because Yu-Gi-Oh! is that's what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is about. It's about fast-paced combo decks that do crazy all-in boards.
Yes.
And I know specifically you have an issue with the point of Ubel. But like, this is more of a catch-all thing. It's not like specifically I'm saying, oh, if you don't like exactly Ubel, you're bad.
No, I get that. And like the overall sentiment of like, well, yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a very combo-heavy game, and you know, sometimes someone gets to pop off and play for a couple of minutes and set up a very good board and stuff like that. That's fine. I can get behind that. But like saying like you can't take issue with like certain decks, or certain decks that take this a little bit too far, because I feel like there's certainly a difference between
I didn't
like
say that though.
Huh?
I didn't say that.
Say what?
I didn't say like, oh, okay, so yeah, of course you can criticize in specific cards. Like, okay, I don't like exactly Herald of Perfection in Drytron, as an example historically, right? Like, that's obviously fine. But essentially, I do think that the point was, hey, listen, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a pretty combo-based heavy game. You're going to be spending a decent amount of time watching an unskippable cutscene. If you don't like that, then maybe Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't the game for you. That's all I really tried to say, and somehow...
I mean, you're using a very bad example for it, though, then. Because, like, I mean, I feel like it's very hard to make the argument that, like, Ubel doing all of this with one Samsara D Lotus is reasonable.
Okay, so I'm not saying it's reasonable, but in the design sense of where Yu-Gi-Oh! Is at... because of the critical mass of hand traps and board breakers, don't you think for combo to exist as a concept, then the one-card combos have to get stronger. So by proxy, if they keep making the hand trap stronger, the combos have to get stronger. So that's just where the design, being pigeonholed and backed into a corner design-wise is coming from. So I feel like it's a natural progression in that way.
And that means you can't, like, criticize it?
I think you can criticize it, but I feel like ultimately that kind of is Yu-Gi-Oh! In a nutshell, is, for the most part, really crazy broken combos that make really oppressive end boards for the combo deck specifically.
Okay, so which deck of this year does that outside of Snake Eye and Ubel?
I mean, you can't say except, Josh. That's a huge portion of the metagame for this entire year.
Do you know how many decks they print every year?
Okay, but in terms of the ones that are competitively viable, it's not that many. Okay, it depends what we're talking about competitively viable. I'm just saying, in the metagame, when you enter a tournament, it's very likely you will play against the combo deck.
Yes.
And you're going to see a lot of combo, and that's going to feel bad if you fundamentally just don't like the idea of combo decks, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that's what most people are saying.
Okay.
That's why, I mean, that's why we are all here playing Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Like we're here playing Yu-Gi-Oh because we don't have an issue with combo per se, but we do have an issue with Yubel.
What's so okay, sure, fine, but I don't. What's really the difference between Yubel and any historical combo deck? Is that because it's a one card combo? Because all of the extenders do more as part of the one card combos.
It's yeah, basically.
Right, but and I'm not saying I like that or I think it's a great idea, but ultimately, because of the reasons I mentioned design wise, that's kind of an inevitability, isn't it?
No.
You don't think so?
No, why would it be?
Well, you don't think that if they keep making more hand traps, mulch
You think
armies,
the only way to make a playable Yu-Gi-Oh deck is to make one card do everything and like every extender like do the full combo and all that?
I don't. No, I don't like that at all. But
But you think
that,
there's no other way to design a good Yu-Gi-Oh deck?
I just think with the premise and philosophy of, well, in order to sell new product and make new powerful crazy deck everyone wants to play, it has to be stronger.
So how do you explain Ryzeal then?
Well, I don't know too much about Raizo just yet. But
Well, it's a good deck without making as crazy of a board as Yubel.
but isn't the biggest takeaway from Ryzeal is that it's just really good into Max E and the metagame of the mulch armies in OCG right now?
For example, yeah. But like, doesn't that counter your point of you have to do this in order to make a deck playable?
No, but I'm saying combo decks I'm talking about. That's like more of a kind of control-y mid-range in the modern sense, but you know, in terms
Okay.
of the all-in wombo combo decks, those exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! And those will keep existing, right?
Well, I guess in that sense, I just think it needs to be balanced to the point where it just can't be as oppressive.
Right. And how do you do that? Where do you draw the line, right? Because that's something I think people are
Well, you certainly don't make like 2 cards play through 3 hand traps and still end on like Soul of Rage plus Phantom of Yubel.
right. I can get behind that. I
So
agree.
like what I'm saying is I don't have an issue with combo in general. I do not. But I do think there needs to be counterplay, and I do think it needs to be at some like there needs to be some sort of um you can definitely cross a line in how powerful you make a combo deck.
But
And
that's the
at some
thing, though.
point
No
go too
matter who
far.
you ask, there's going to be different answers for where that line should be.
Yeah,
And that's why
of course.
right. So that's a big topic. That's a big discussion we could get
Okay, so
into.
at which
But
point if we okay, what deck needs to cross the line for you that you need to quit Yu-Gi-Oh?
well, when I think of not specifically Yubel, but just like the idea, whether it's like a one card combo, two card combo, I think that competitive Yu-Gi-Oh isn't for specifically the type of people who usually, and you know, you can't say there aren't a lot of people like this who complain every format since the game's inception about
Mhm.
long turns, oppressive, like, you know, constant disruptions, 3, 4, 5
Yeah.
interruptions before you've even got your turns right. I'm just saying, if you fall into that category where you don't like that style of gameplay, then I don't think Yu-Gi-Oh is for you. That's all my takeaway
That's
is from that.
okay, that's a fair point if you phrase it that way. But because I do feel like that includes people that complain about like Dragon Link.
Who's complaining about Dragon Link? In what sense?
Dude, there's people like when I play against Dragon Link on Master Duel and they're doing like a combo that is going to take a while, but I know exactly it's going to end up on like a completely reasonable end board that I can deal with. There's still people in chat that are like, "Oh my god, I can't stand this, right? It takes so long."
Right, exactly. There is a huge number of people who complain about that, and it's like how many
Well, I feel like
format?
we need to differentiate between people that that take issue with like a Dragon Link combo or an Unchained combo or something like that, and then people that are just like rightfully saying like, okay, well, Samsara Lotus shouldn't be doing that much.
Okay, well, let's be real. If you have if you have a problem with Dragon Link, you know, I think they're most likely they will have a problem with Yubel without a doubt, right?
Yes, but not everyone who has a problem with Yubel will have a problem with Dragon Link.
Sure. So, you know, by proxy, not all of those players have a problem with that, but vice versa, it doesn't apply. Now, all I'm saying is, and what I meant by that was not specifically Yubel. I think like fixating on this specific deck was a mistake, but the
Mhm.
idea and general concept is if you don't like long turns, lots of disruptions, then Yu-Gi-Oh
Yeah.
isn't gonna be a game you'll enjoy. That's all I wanted to say. That's my main takeaway. And my opinion further than that, this is the unpopular opinion, is that I like Ubel. I actually really enjoy Ubel. I think that deck is super cool. Maybe not the best way to like play Yu-Gi-Oh for a lot of people, but unpopular opinion as an ex-Adamantipator enjoyer, like, I like that. That's where the personal opinion comes in. But all I meant by the not playing Yu-Gi-Oh portion isn't that I want people to quit Yu-Gi-Oh en masse. I'm saying, listen, understand that Yu-Gi-Oh has long turns, has lots of combo interactions, and if that's something that you don't like, then you're not gonna have a good time.
Yep,
Is that fair?
I mean, that if you phrase it like that, I can see where you're coming from at least.
And can I at least address like some of the critical thinking skills here, by the way? Because like one of the comments on the video was something like, "Oh, Farfa, are you saying that if I don't like Ubel, that means I should quit Yu-Gi-Oh because me and my friends who do draft with pack fillers on the kitchen table shouldn't be playing the game?" It's like, no, clearly I'm referring to like this specific interaction in the competitive level.
It's not your first day on the internet.
But it has like 50 likes or something, and it's like, how
Yeah.
How did you people not extrapolate that? Clearly, I'm not referring to if you like playing around with janky commons and pack filler with your friends, you should quit you because
Dude, I can't believe you told them to quit the game. That's so
like that's the takeaway. Anyway, I will say my actual personal opinion from it is what I don't like about heavy oppressive combo decks is I like the idea of one card combos. I like the idea of making crazy end boards. What I don't like is that one card combo extenders. If you start with an Ash uninterrupted and you end on some crazy field, that's fine. I think generally you should hopefully draw a board breaker, or you should maybe deck build with more hand traps. My issue is when you go Ash, you negate it, and then they just activate Bonfire, get Poplar. And it does card for card the exact same end board. All you've done is hand loop yourself. That's what I really dislike.
That's a fair point that I definitely agree on. Is like some of these combo decks don't even have like clear choke points anymore. It's just always like, well, if they have one extender, it doesn't really matter where you hit them. Of course, there's more or less optimal spots to use your hand traps, but for the most part, it'll boil down to, well, if they have this sort of extender card, then they're just gonna like do the same thing over and over again.
And it was really egregious last format where it's like summon Snake Eye Ash, hand trap. Okay, pitch, summon Diabell Star, negate, and then go Fiendsmith combo, right? Like there's no world where you drop 2 hand traps against your opponent that it should do basically nothing. That is a problem. I don't like that.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
So we should all just play runic mirrors forever.
Bro, you play a runic combo deck and tell me seriously you're not having a great time? Like,
honestly, I tried your Lightsworn build a little bit. It's legitimately enjoyable. It is fun. Runic combo is great. I will say that. But listen, we can't all take your opinion seriously on combo as a guy who hasn't seen a battle phase in 3 years.
Bro, I had battle phases. Sometimes.
Anyway, that's just a little yapathon at our start of our podcast. I guess we'll clear the air there. Mostly I take issue with the fact that bro hid my face. He covered my face.
Bro, okay, dude. My editor told me after. I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
And he proceeded to ignore me in the chat, like just dono walds. Maybe if I gifted him some subs, he would have replied.
I know that's how it normally goes.
He's too big for us now. All right. So where are we taking this? Should we recap Lil first?
I think it's a good place to start if we just go over the current format. I also want to talk about how one of the 2 people in this call said after the last Forbidden Limited list, they said that Snake Eye was going to be the most represented deck in the top cut of YCS Lil. I'm not saying any names or pointing any fingers though, but it was one of us.
If you flip a coin, you will 50% chance hit one of the culprits who said that in this call.
Yeah.
I will take a massive L, unfortunately. Definitely missed
To be fair,
mark.
I feel like everyone, me, myself included, underestimated how hard it hit Snake Eye in the first couple of days after it dropped. But
yeah. This is the last time I take Joseph's locals report as a serious form.
Yeah, dude, I just now remembered. You were like, oh, what MBT went undefeated at locals yesterday.
I will never trust him again. So yeah, that was yeah, we missed the mark, I think, and I believe what would you say is the biggest issue with Snake Eye? What was it about the ban list that specifically just essentially made it fall off? I mean, gosh, I think there was two top cut spots, which is a Far, and one of them was Fire King, not even
Yeah,
pure.
yeah.
What was the exact like interaction that we lost here? Is it Beatrice specifically? Is it the Lacrima? What was it that you lost that kind of was? I don't want to say nail in the coffin because if it tops a
Yeah.
YCS, I mean it's still playable clearly, but
Yeah.
you know what happened?
I think I think it's not that Snake Eyes is not good anymore because I do think it's a very viable strategy still. I think it's just that the other thing that I was afraid of happened, and that is that Bell simply took over the spot of the most powerful combo deck. And so everyone who's willing to play that kind of deck, who wants to play that kind of deck, is just going to play Bell instead, right? Because I think if you have like in a competitive environment, if you have two decks that are both incredibly powerful, if one deck is only like 2% better than the other one, you should have a disproportionate amount of people playing that deck over the other one because it's just slightly better, right? It's like the same thing but slightly better. So like the overwhelming majority of people who want to play like that sort of deck will just play Bell right now.
Yeah, no, completely true. But what I will say is, in terms of the outside of the Ubel decks, because I guess there isn't really too much to say about Ubel, right? It's kind of just like the same deck per se.
It's yeah,
were you surprised at any of the performances of other decks? And of course, you did really well. You bubbled
almost.
with your almost, yeah.
Yeah.
Got to the very final round of the YCS, a pretty large YCS, just under 2,000 players, and
Yeah.
you pulled
Yeah,
it back again.
I'm also responsible for the only pure Snake Eye top because that's what I lost to in round 11. I lost to Philip on pure Snake Eye in round 11.
It's really unfortunate
Um
because, well, I mean, you can take it away. Tell us about your deck, what you decided to play, and I
yeah,
suppose a little bit
so
about that.
I people that were on my stream the week before the YCS know that I was struggling with my deck choice because I didn't really feel like there was a huge edge to gain in the Ubel mirror match, which was obviously the best deck in the format. And I just found it incredibly hard to like play or find a deck for the Ubel environment because like hand traps are not great against the deck, but board breakers aren't either because the deck just has like such an incredibly strong end board. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it while commentating. Like the fact that one or two cards ends you on like Desiree, Varudras, Caesar, Phantom, the Unchained cards. It's like it's almost unbreakable. Like I was trying different board breaker approaches to Ubel and Chimera or something, but I was consistently drawing like one or two breakers plus engine, and it still wasn't enough. So I ended up talking to Pack a lot, and he told me the week before he thinks the only real breaker that can work is Sphere Mode. So I was trying different things, like different decks that could play Sphere Mode, and I ended up playing Trap Lab, which was just like it was a basically a TCG version of the deck I played at Worlds to beat Ubel, right? Because Ubel has very little interaction with back row. The fact that it has Desiree and Varudras make it a lot better into Lab. So I just played Sphere Mode, and so the plan was just like basically my deck was really good into Tenpai because they always let you go first, and Tenpai actually isn't that good into Lab. Like Lab is quite good into it. And it's supposed to be good into Ubel. Like I was winning every time I go first, and when I go second, if I lose the dice roll, basically I either have to draw my Sphere Mode game one or game three, which I added more copies with Lava Golem after siding. So that was the deck I played, and I beat all of the Ubels I played against. I played against three. I played against four Tenpais, beat three of them, so lost to one Tenpai, which I guess is just bound to happen. Like it was fine. I just didn't draw like it was not even what you would think. Like normally you would think like, oh, Tenpai can like blow you out with like lightning storm or something. It was just a matter of I didn't really draw engine. And I think I opened Lovely plus Fear mode game one going first. So like yeah. But yeah, that was my deck. I quite liked it actually. I thought it was a good solution to the format, at least for me personally. Like it was good against Ubel, it was good against Tenpai. Those were the two most represented decks. So I was happy with it in hindsight. I lost to two Snake Eyes, which I didn't really prepare for that much. It's not like an unlosable matchup, but it's harder, of course. But Lab actually did okay as well. Like that's kind of one thing that also um like what's the word for it? Like it confirms that I thought the deck was good because two people made top 16 with it, which is I think like after Yubel and Tenpai, that's the most represented deck in top 16. So it was not just me who thought the deck was a good call, at least. But yeah, I didn't quite make it. I lost the last round, so it's all right.
I think that's always one of the dangers when you play what is essentially an anti-meta deck, right? Like if you
Yeah,
just get too many of the wrong matchups,
yeah.
it can feel really bad.
It's not that. I should have probably just been I should have beaten the Tenpai deck, like statistically. That was the one where I was supposed to win. But the Snake Eye ones were like calculated risks, right? I was ready to lose those kind of matchups to have a good matchup into Tenpai and Yubel. And I did not regret my choice at all because round one, game one, I sit down, my opponent goes Shifter Molcharmy, and I'm like, you know what? I'll just set these 5 trap cards from my hand and let you go. So like I learned that Labrynth like has a lot of things that normally frustrate other decks don't frustrate this deck. Like I got heat waved and didn't care. I got anti-spelled and didn't care. I got shifted 3 times in the first 2 rounds. Like it was completely fine. So in that regard, like I had a good time still.
Yeah, I mean that's like the greatest thing about Labyrinth. Like the only hand trap you actually just care about is just Ash Blossom for
Yeah,
your
it's just Ash.
welcome. So that's yeah, really super solid choice, all things considered.
Yeah,
Um,
and also a little bit of a tip for the people that are looking to beat Tenpai in Master Duel, because that's happening. So like if you want to play some like Lab, I think that gets a little boost in viability from that.
you taking in one threatening roar to search with Lab, lady.
I think you can just go Dimensional Barrier and you're fine. But
Yep, that
I
works
guess
too.
you could. Yeah. If you play Furnitures, I didn't play any Furnitures. My deck literally just had one lovely, 3 ladies, and 3 sphere mods. That was it.
What was the lady ratio all about? Like, don't people usually just play like 3 lady and that's it, or sometimes 2 and 1? Like, any particular nuance to that, or
Well, it's just 3 lady because it's like the idea is just you stick one of them on the board and you just like
get
drive that
traps?
advantage home. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I've considered cutting Lovely, but the ability to turn Big Welcome into a disruption was too valuable, I think.
Yeah.
But Lady is just the best one because you draw it alongside a bunch of defensive cards and you just put it up and it just like guarantees you win the game in a couple turns.
Yeah. In terms of the metagame breakdown, I mean, it's so diverse, honestly. There are so many different decks that managed to make top cut spot
Yeah.
outside of, Yubel, which I think ultimately people expected Yubel or Snake Eye to still be really dominant, and
Hmm.
that has happened.
Yeah.
Which I think maybe can be a little bit frustrating because I think the metagame looks pretty healthy. Like, it looks really fun. I mean, there's a couple of aberrations in there, I'd say, maybe, like Protoss and sometimes Tenpai hands. But
Yeah.
ultimately, I think it actually looks like a pretty fun kind of format.
Yeah.
Just Yubel sort of just didn't really take enough of a hit. So outside of the the 2 main decks, is there any kind of cool decks you considered or anything that surprised you to see in Top Cut?
I mean, there's some surprises there. I mean, I'm happy to see that Melodious made it into the top 32. That is one of my favorite decks of the recent like years or months. It's not even years; it's months at this point. Ritual Beast making top cut was expected. Obviously, it's Europe, so Plant was guaranteed to be at least in top 4. And the biggest surprise is probably the Pearly player who made it into. I think it was all the way into top 16.
It was top 16, yeah. Pearly running, and funnily enough, catching onto the same tech as you. They main decked Sphere modes.
Yeah. And I think if you look at just the overall deck breakdown, I agree. It does feel like a very fun format, and legitimately, the only deck I have an issue with in the breakdown is unfortunately the most represented one because I personally find Ubel, at least from my perspective, like in terms of like preparation for the tournament, I found it very frustrating because going second into that deck is like really really difficult. Even for combo deck standards, I guess is why I have an issue with it. Like, it's not like decks like Monadium in the last year or something where it was like, well, at least if I draw like Imperm Nib, I'm gonna be fine. But like, yeah, it's different. But it's overall, there's a lot of other decks that are quite cool. Like the Chimera builds that people have been running are cool. The Fire King deck is pretty cool, even though I know people hate Snake Eyes at this point. But like the Fire King version was always my favorite one. So
I don't know if you look too much into the Chimera deck, because I know Dean Kabui and Co played it, and
mhm.
a couple of them topped, and he missed out.
Yeah.
But I think just looking at a list here, there's one That's also just main decking sphere mode as well, by the
Yeah.
way. But I think one new sort of tech that people have caught on to is they're using this a dusted gold Necrom engine to get
Yeah.
into Fiendsmiths. Do you know much
Yeah,
about this deck or?
that's been a tech for a while where it's the best. I think it's the best thing you can send off of the Baphomet fusion.
Hmm.
Because what you do is you just send Sinister Necrom, and then you can banish that from the grave to summon a Dusted Gold from the deck. And it's not even terrible if you draw Sinister Necrom because it's a fusion material that you just fuse to the graveyard and then you can use it anyways. I think it's only if you draw the Adusted Gold that's not great,
Hmm.
but you can actually use its effect. Like I don't know if the list that topped or the lists that topped used the one copy of Dark Fusion, but theoretically you could.
I think one or two of them did. This one I'm looking at just now doesn't, but I do believe
Yeah.
someone did actually run the Dark Fusion, so that's pretty
Yeah, it's
funny.
been like an ongoing discussion in the community. I feel like whether you play that card or not, but it's definitely possible because at the end of the day, it's just like a poly that makes your. It's a poly that can, I think, only summon fiend monsters, but it makes it untargetable. So
Yeah. All right. Well, the Rage of the Abyss, I guess, is coming up soon. The main takeaways
yeah.
I think from Rage of the Abyss is, I suppose we can begin with the Fuwalos, the amazing
Yeah.
new hand trap paired with
Hmm.
Perulia is technically viable as they are
Yeah.
designed to be part of the same archetype. But
Hmm.
Fuwalos, for those of you who have forgotten, it is a hand trap in the same way that Perulia works, where you can use it from your hand if you control no cards, discard it, and draw a card for every time your opponent special summons or summons a monster from the
Yeah.
extra deck or the main deck as well.
Hmm.
And that card has debuted as a secret rare in Rage of the Abyss.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Thoughts?
there's two aspects to this card. The one is the gameplay aspect, the game design aspect, like whether you think this card is going to be good for the game just in terms of like the pure like on paper. If you play with this card, does the game get better or does the game get worse? And the other aspect is obviously going to be the price discussion, right? That is one of the biggest things. It's not like I feel like it's not like people expected anything else, but it's just like another one of those staples that is just like incredibly expensive. I don't actually know right now what we're talking, but I'm pretty sure it's above 100 euros, maybe even significantly above. Let me just quickly check
Cheapest
what
card
the
market is like 125.
pre-sale. Yeah, play sets are like 125 right now. Um, so we're talking like $400 roughly for a play set,
And
which is
I'm pretty sure it's also just
rough.
going to go up as well, right? Like because I mean, if you compare it to like SP Little Knight and stuff, like that
Mhm.
was well over 100, and that's a one of. So
It's
imagine.
it's always hard to predict these things because I also feel like it depends on what kind of set the card is in, like how much value do the other cards hold. Because you look at Prosperity, which was also a 3 of in most meta decks and even rogue decks, that didn't hit more than 120, I think. So I don't know. It's hard to predict for me. I have no idea. But I do think the card is going to be played a lot. So, but the set is quite strong, I think. So there's other cards that can soak up a little bit of the value as well. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those I didn't expect much and I'm still disappointed type of things. So
It's one of those moments where it would have been so nice if that card was an ultra rare. To be fair, even if it was an ultra rare, it was going to be like $80 or something. Like it
yeah.
like ultimately with the every card is printed in one rarity, ignoring QCRs because those are not going to help the price, right? Like everything being printed in one rarity, this card was always going to be expensive. Like even if they made it a super rare like Magnamoot, it was probably going to be more expensive than Magnamoot. So like people were still going to be like, it's a $30 super. That's crazy, right? Like no matter what, it was going to be an expensive card. But of course, this is the worst case scenario in terms of budgeting the Siga rare. So it's going to be one of those cases where, unfortunately, if you're on a budget and you're already playing a weaker deck than other people because you're not going to have access to like the most expensive engines in the game, you're also going to be at a disadvantage in terms of the non-engine, which is just the unfortunate effect that this is going to have.
Just buy one for cross out. Keep it on a budget. All
I
right.
guess. But
Uh
speaking of the impact on the game, actually, the more I think about this card, the more I feel like the less I hate it rather. Because when it was initially announced, I felt like um we reacted to it in a relatively negative way. I don't know how you feel about it at this point in time, but I can think of a bunch of decks that can actually play under this card okay. And I think it hits some of the meta decks the most right now. Like it hits out of the decks. Like if you look at the pie chart from YCS Lil, there's a bunch of decks that actually have solid lines against the card. And then there's Ubel, like anything with the Fiendsmith cards is hit by this card like significantly harder than, I don't know, Chimera, for example. That deck has fine lines under it. Even Snake Eyes, which is more rogue pre-Rota than it is post-Rota, but like, or Voiceless Voice, Centurion, those kind of decks are all like fine under the card, whereas like decks like Snake Eyes and Ubel take a significantly harder hit from it. I don't know.
I don't know if like fine is the word I'd use, because I mean you're still like it's one of those like weird cards where like at worst you're still probably gonna give your opponent a 1-for-1. So it's like there's no decision making involved with, I feel like, playing the card.
That
It
does not necessarily make it bad though.
well, the way I look at it is kind of just like worst case scenario you cycle for 1, best case scenario you're potentially skipping your opponent's turn. It's really really like strong.
But the thing is, like, you're only skipping the turn of decks that like deserve to get their turn skipped. You know what I mean?
Maybe, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. It feels like it's one of those cards where you just kind of don't know until you play enough of it. So I think once we get some reps in the format, it'll start to kind of make sense, because there's like so many different possibilities, scenarios, and situations versus decks and playing with certain decks that you'll start to maybe realize, okay, so is this card as bad as we thought? Maybe, maybe not. I think that it's going to be super solid. I think it's a staple 3 of in every single side
that
deck
I'm not
minimum.
arguing with. It is a staple card that a lot of decks are going to main deck. Some decks might just want to side deck it. It depends. Like the way I look at it is, I think every deck that has a way to discard it when going first is going to want to main deck it, like without what's it called? Without exception. Like any deck that has anything in the like Snake Eyes with
Diabo.
like Diabellstar or something. Like if there is a way for you to discard this card when you're going first, you're gonna want to main deck it.
Just because the value it gives you is so good that
Yeah.
you would want to main it for sure.
Yeah.
Pearly as well, you know, that's absolutely a deck that can.
Yeah, all of those decks, I mean, most modern Yu-Gi-Oh decks have ways to make use of that card. Like even Chimera can fuse with it, worst case. Centurion can pitch it for the field spell. Ubel can pitch it for opening of the spirit gates. Like all those decks are gonna play the card, right?
There's
So
like
like,
one deck you haven't mentioned with that, and I'm so surprised. You missed one.
which one?
Hugin discard.
I mean, yeah, okay. I would love to rant about runic decks, but like as long as Ubel and Snake Eyes are gonna make the boards that they make right now, you just can't break them going second. So like you're not gonna play
Yeah.
runic, unfortunately. I mean, they did top actually at the YCS. There's I think 2 people that made top 32, which is pretty cool to see. But like, and from my testing, going second into Ubel was just straight up impossible. Which maybe Fuwalos changes that, to be fair. Yeah.
Yeah, so one runic top Lil was White Forest. 2 topped at Cancun, but they were of the other type of runic variety. The other runic version.
We don't talk about that one. That's not runic.
The fun one, yeah, that's the word. So yeah, that's definitely a super important card. And I believe there's also well, by the time you're watching this, I think the UK Open is currently live, which I believe is that the first major, quote unquote, major event of Rota this weekend, right?
It should be next week, I think, by the time you're watching this.
Isn't Rota release date October 10?
Yes, but like the UK Open, I think, is a week after. What you're thinking?
12/13, isn't it? Right, Chad?
I thought it was the week after.
UK Open is 12/13. Apparently, there's a YCS this weekend. Is it an undocumented YCS?
Wait, there is a YCS?
A Latin America. Is it like Santiago or something? Oh, Niagara. Damn. That's
It's
also
this
just
weekend.
Apparently. Which is a shame because I think.
Oh, it is this weekend. Yeah.
I think Canadian YCSs don't get streamed, which is such a shame.
Okay, yeah. I was wondering whether it was streamed or not, because then I was gonna watch it. But like, if not, then I guess that answers that question.
We'll have to see, but if maybe someone can check the website real quick, but I'm pretty sure it's not streamed because I mean the last one wasn't, and I don't think we've had a streamed Canadian YCS in a hot
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the main hand trap. I suppose we can talk about Dominus Purge is the new one, or is it Impulse? One or the
Impulse
other.
is the new one. Purge was the last one, but yeah, Impulse is pretty impactful as well. I think. Maybe if not in the short term, then in the long term.
I think the biggest positive. So for Impulse, anyone doesn't know, it's part of the Dominus line, which hasn't been too popular, but it's been in a couple of side decks recently. It's a line of trap cards that act like Imperm, where you can use them from your hand, but it restricts you from using certain attributes for the rest of the duel.
Yeah,
So-
only if activated from the hand. If you go first and you set it, then it's not going to impact you at all.
Yeah, so the advantage of the new one is that the first one stops adding, like Ash Blossom, but not special summoning. The next one, this one in ROTA, this one prevents you from summoning. So it's like basically like a solemn warning. And the advantage of this one is that it locks you out of wind, earth, and light, I believe.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be seeing any Fiendsmith decks running this. However, the best deck for sure, without a doubt, is going to be Tenpai, because there's essentially no drawback. I guess maybe it could stop you from using seals at best, but yeah.
Yeah, but like you're going to use it from your hand when you're going second, which is normally
Yeah.
not when you want to go into seals, right? But like
Exactly.
this card is, I think, so much more relevant than Purge because it's better on both ends. It has a better effect. I think negating a card that summons something is better than a card that adds. Both effects are good, but like this one's better. And the things it locks you out of, or the things that it leaves you with, are also far more relevant at the moment, right? You can still use darks, so that leaves a huge portion of decks, right? Like you can play this in like Labrynth. You can play this in Fire King as well because it leaves you with fire and dark. So like Fire Kings, like you find you still have IP, you still have SP, all that kind of stuff. It also leaves you with water. So like potential new Mermail decks and stuff like that can use it as well. And then yeah, obviously like you mentioned, Tenpai is like also a perfect deck for it.
Yeah, I think from the OCG metagame breakdown, we've seen that it's essentially just a hard staple in Tenpai decks. So it's going to be around for a long time, I think, if you're going to be playing Tenpai. So just another hand trap.
I've seen some people. I've seen some people forgo it for like just the board breaker version of Tenpai, right? Like how some people in the TCG are not playing hand traps but board breakers instead. In that case, you might also not want to play this card. But otherwise, I'm pretty sure like you just want to play Dominus Impulse. Like that card is great. Basically, long story short, this card is great, and every deck that can use it will want to use
it. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Now, for that's I think that's it for the staples, right? We didn't get any like crazy TCG exclusives, did we?
Think there is no like the only thing that's like worth mentioning is the quick play spell, but it didn't see much play in the OCG. Like I liked its design, but I think it's unfortunately a little bit too weak. It's
What
the
spell?
Final Bringer of the End Times, which is just a quick play spell that says target a monster you control and a card your opponent controls and destroy both.
Is that a trap card?
No, it's a quick play.
Quick play spell.
So that's why it's like kind of interesting because it's like a generic card that you can play like an enemy controller to dodge like negations and stuff like that, and like trade 1 for 1. Well, it's technically a -1, but if you dodge something, then like it's a cool card, but it's just not quite good enough. I wish it was a little bit stronger, but that's the only other generic card that I can think of.
I just searched it up, and Final Bringer of the End Times is in the name of Varadras. I didn't know that, by the way. Like, long ass name, but apparently there's some lore there for anyone who cares.
Wait, Varadras is called Final Bringer of the End Times?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know. Like, he's got too long of a title. I never bothered to learn it, but yeah.
I just fear moded it before reading the full name.
So I suppose like the biggest takeaway from Rage of the Abyss is absolutely going to be Azamina. Have you done any testing with Azamina? What can you tell us about Azamina? Is Snake Eyes so fucking back, baby?
Yeah, I haven't tested with it. Like I haven't built a Snake Eye deck and ran some games. That's not really what I was into the last couple of days. But I have looked into also for a YouTube video. I've looked into the combos and what these cards allow Snake Eye to do, and I do think that they make Snake Eye significantly stronger. Which is obviously exactly what everyone wanted from Rage of the Abyss, is to make Snake Eye stronger. The Azamina archetype is actually something that I have no beef with, though. I think the archetype is quite cool, actually. It's just a little unfortunate side effect that it happens to synergize really well with Snake Eyes. But I mean, that's just a very unfortunate coincidence, right? Like that is, that it is what it is. But the overall thing is that it's a new fusion archetype that works by like it has a fusion spell where you summon them by sending sinful spoils cards to the graveyard instead of actually fusion summoning.
Yeah. Um, so what does it like do for Snake Eye specifically? Like, what's the synergy?
Okay,
Is it
so
just because
they
they're
happen to
searchable,
have
or
okay, they happen to have a couple of cards that if you string them together, they
Mhm.
end up in a pretty cool spot. So they have that one card which is called Sinful Spoils Deception, which is a continuous spell that lets you tribute a monster from your hand or field to search any Azamina card. So what you do with that card is you tribute any monster, and it stays on the field because it's a continuous spell. So you search the Azamina fusion spell, which, like I said, lets you fusion summon an Azamina by sending an original, by sending a Sinful Spoils card to the graveyard. um, and the way it works is it depends on what the level of the monster you're trying to summon is. But for the level sixes, you need to send one sinful spoil to the graveyard, which the continuous spell is a sinful spoil. So it searches the fusion spell, then you activate the fusion spell, you send the continuous spell, and you summon Mercy Alago, which is a level 6 fusion that on summon adds any sinful spoil from deck to hand. Um, and you're not going to use that to search the White Forest Sinful Spoil card. I'm telling you that much. You're searching Wanted, and then you're searching Dia Bellstar with that. And then you can even draw a card with Wanted, and then you can summon Dia Bellstar, and then you can set Original from the deck. And then the Azamina fusion spell can add itself from the graveyard back to the hand. Then you activate it again because the fusion effect is not hard once per turn. You send these set original sinful spoils from the field to the graveyard and summon Azamina Ria Silvera, which has the wonderful effect of when your opponent activates a card or effect, you tribute her to negate it.
Yeah, I think it's also nib proof as well through all of this, right? Below 5 summons.
So I think you're summoning the Omni Negate on summon number 5. And you
Mm.
get so what you get out of that one Sinful Spoils Deception card is you get a Link 2, you get an Omni Negate, and you can search a Snake Eye Ash with the original Sinful Spoils in your graveyard, and you haven't normal summoned
That sounds really strong for sure.
yet.
That's
So
really good.
here's the thing. This solves a couple of the issues that Snake Eyes had after the last ban list, right? Snake Eyes lost some starters. There you go. You've got more starters now. And Snake Eyes lost a lot of a lot of play around possibilities into like hand traps and stuff like that, right? Like because you lost Appaloosa and that stuff, like you were more vulnerable to hand traps at certain points in the combo. Right now, you are not anymore because the Azamina cards give you both consistency and ways to outplay your opponent's hand traps, right? Which is exactly what everyone wanted.
Do you still run Fiendsmith, do you think? Or is that just kind of redundant in
My personal prediction, without having tested the deck, is no, because the Azamina cards take up extra deck space, which is already incredibly tight in the deck with the Fiendsmith cards as they are. And the other thing is that drawing the Fiendsmith itself actually doesn't access the Snake Eye cards anymore with like how they hit Lacrima and Beatrice, right? Like so, like drawing the Fiendsmith doesn't actually get you Snake Eye cards. So I think ultimately, in order to have more options in the extra deck and to even fit the Examina cards in the main and extra, I think people are gonna forego the Fiendsmith in Snake Eyes.
Hmm. And where does that leave the deck in terms of non-engine? Do you have space for a ton of hand traps, or do you think it's just a couple of board breakers?
I mean, it already does have room for non-engine as it stands, but
Yeah, how
like,
much? Like a lot, or
let me just quickly see the one that topped the one that topped Lil was a 43 card deck with
oh no, I mean with like
5.
Azamina.
Yeah, because I think the Examine cards, they just take the spot of the Fiendsmith cards, right? Because
Hmm.
that played Fiendsmith, so you don't have to cut hand traps for it. You just cut the Fiendsmith cards. But like, yeah,
Sounds really good.
they had room for like 14, 15 non-engine before, so it's gonna be around that, I think.
Yeah. So does that let it play Purge?
The Examina cards might have lights in them. Let me
Oh,
see.
okay.
That fusion is dark. I'm just checking.
And on top of that, the best takeaway, I suppose, for sure, is just the consistency that just one spell gives you. Like, does this engine have like a Garnet at all, or?
Technically, the fusion spell doesn't really do anything if you don't draw it alongside an original sinful spell. So that's one downside at least.
Hmm. Okay.
The Azamina stuff is all dark, so technically you could play Impulse. I
Hmm.
think you'd have to skip on some extra deck options, but I don't think you actually lose much from it. Like you can still go for Zalantis. You can't play Celine anymore, I guess, which is a good card in pure Snake Eyes with Snake Idea Bellstar, but yeah.
Hmm. Diabellstar, sorry, Celine without Aploza, maybe a little bit weaker, but still kind of nice going second, I suppose.
Mhm.
The Rabbit is a light, I guess. Silo
Yeah,
hats.
but I could very well see a world where people like side deck the rabbit for going first and then take out the impulse, or like going first it doesn't matter because you can just set it, right? You're not going to be locked.
I think we've seen a lot of in deck building this last format is people side
Side
decking
decking
a
extra deck.
lot of extra cards. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a natural effect of the Fiendsmith cards just taking up so much extra deck space.
Hmm. All right. Azamina Snake Eye going to give Snake Eye a bit of a comeback, and
Yeah, I think the only question that remains to be answered is that does that make it overtake Bell as the premier combo deck in the format? Because once again, these two decks are competing for who is the best one card combo deck, and I think whichever one is slightly better than the other is going to be played way more.
let's see how much Deception is right now. Deception is it's kind of expensive, like 40-ish euros pre-sale
It's a
here.
secret as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
they dropped the trailer of all the Azamina cards
And didn't include
being ultra
Deceitful.
rare or lower, but then they didn't include Deception because it's technically not an Azamina card. So everyone was like, "Hey, Azamina affordable," and then they were like, "Yeah, jokes on you."
Yeah, 3 of was the secret rare, unsurprisingly. Not
Yeah,
all the fusions are very low rare. I think there's like one ultra and the
yeah.
rest are like supers and commons, so
I think like one or two of the fusions are ultras. I don't know exactly, but it's like it. The Azamina cards themselves are quite low rarity. It's just the Sinful Spoil's Deception.
yeah. It looks like it could be kind of fun. It's a little different, kind of, I suppose, into how Snake Eye was traditionally played, right? Because you don't have Desiree, you don't have Apollosa, so you're ending on some new fusions and generic link monsters, I guess, compared to
I
before,
guess
right?
we'll have to wait and see what it ends up ending on. Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, they will always end on the. If you don't hand trap them and they're not forced to negate your hand trap, then they will end on that Omni negate Azamina fusion monster as well, right?
It's any card, right? Or is it just
It's
monsters?
any card or effect. Yeah, it doesn't destroy. That's the only thing. Like if you like use a bestial or something and they negate it, you get to keep it. But yeah.
An interesting clause with negates, because sometimes that's actually better that it doesn't destroy. You never know, depending on the card. There are
Could
situations
be.
where that's good. So that's Azamina,
Yeah.
and well, I guess I'll still ask you as the number one fan of sharks. What's the shark community
hmm
been saying? How's the support going to be in
Well,
Rhoda?
the shark community thinks it's tier 0 for the next year.
Year, wow.
Like
Okay,
for
just
context, I there was a new shark card announced today. I don't know if you looked
it
at
was
it.
terrible, dude. It's ass. It's one
So
effect
I looked
return,
at
so it
it.
doesn't even do
I
anything
looked
by
at it and
itself.
I looked at it and I said it was like kind of mid. And then someone in my chat was like, "You're gonna regret saying this when Sharks is a tier 0 deck for a full year like Snake Eyes was."
God. Well, I mean, if they're not gonna do it post Rhoda, I don't think Jet Shark's gonna help that much. But you never know,
No,
because
no,
this
trust.
this card is in pseudo, Supreme Darkness, and assuming the next ban list is probably December-ish, kind of, right? So there is a world where they completely slaughter Tenpai, Snake Eye, and Yubel, and
hmm
that, ladies and gentlemen, is when Big Jaws is gonna be back.
If we're talking water decks right now, I think if anything, there's a chance that the Mermaid Atlantean deck is better for us than it was in the TCG in the OCG because it didn't really pop off in the OCG. It was like played in like the first 2 weeks after the set's release, and then it didn't really do anything after. But like for us, there's two differences. First of all, we don't have Maxi, and I think the deck is like terrible into Maxi, but significantly better into Fuwalos because you can probably still do some like Mooling Glaciaing because that's a summon from the hand and not from deck or extra deck.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so like And we do have toads, right? So like people can actually set up like Bahamut
Oh
sharks
yeah, they
into
don't have
toads
toads
most of
in
the time.
there. That's
They don't have
massive.
toad, and I think that's a massive difference.
Yeah, no, wow. Well, this could be Mermail era. That's absolutely true.
For the record, I don't think it's a better combo deck than Snake Eyes and Yubel. Significantly weaker going second, I think, inherently. But like once those decks are hit on the next list, like maybe we're looking at like a Mermail deck
Yeah, because
being good in the format.
the new cards they got as well today from I think that's going to be in Pseudo, right?
Yes, I think it's Supreme Darkness. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That new
And those are
Poseidra
also
guy.
good.
Yeah, that new Poseidra looks really good. It's like it sends a guy from deck to grave for cost, so you can bait something, and it bounces on
Yeah.
summon. So you can send Dragoon, get a search, bounce something, or hit 2 cards with 1 Poseidra.
Mm-hmm.
Looks good, looks good. We'll see. Unironically, if we go from like 2 years of fire into water, I don't know how I'm gonna feel about that, but I think for a lot of people that'll be a breath of fresh air. So
I don't know how much people are gonna like going second into Mermail Atlantean from today, but we'll see.
yeah, there's like probably a world where getting Moulin Glaciated is just more
I've seen
frustrating.
combos where they end on triple toad. So
Triple Toad.
yeah,
Damn. That's a lot of sphere mode fodder, huh?
that's a lot of toads.
Uh, and yeah, so shark cards. I mean, anything to say too much about them? I feel like they unironically have like a shark circular, right? Like there is like just a 1 card like double toad plus Nash or something. I believe in Rota. It's
Yeah.
legit kind of sick. Um,
I don't think the shark cards are bad. I also never said they were bad. I only said it wasn't enough to make them meta. That's what people got mad at me for. But I don't know. It remains to be seen, I guess.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, the biggest difference is Toad, and I think any rank 4 water deck is definitely going to want to take advantage of that. So, no
Yeah.
Elf, which is somewhat of a difference, but I feel like I'd rather have Toad over Elf anyway if I'm playing water. So
Yeah.
that's that could be real. I mean, it could be a thing. So pay
Hmm.
attention to that going forward. Um, is there anything else in Rota significant? Sharks, Azamina, and has to be something else there.
I'm a huge fan of the, even though it's not many cards, but I'm a huge fan of the Centurion support that's coming out. I've been doing Centurion propaganda recently. I've been enjoying the deck in Master Duel a lot, but I think it's one of those decks where it's, even with the new stuff, it's gonna have a lower ceiling than the other combo decks, but it is one of those decks where if you get Fuwalos or Puruliad, you actually don't care. And I think that's something that people will like. You know, some people are gonna, there's basically, it depends on what kind of person you are going into this upcoming format of like, I will just try my hardest to combo off, and if my opponent Fuvuloses me, I will try to draw Ash Blossom or Called by the Grave or Crossout. And then there's going to be people who are just rather playing a slightly weaker, more balanced mid-range deck, but therefore don't get hurt by Fuvulos as much. And that's basically Centurion, right? Or some other decks. Or you could play a deck that doesn't care about Fuvulos at all, that actually does make that card a -1, like, I don't know, Flu or other like Lab or something, like where you actually just don't care about the card.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a somewhat interesting thing coming up. Is there are
Yeah,
like lots of ways to deck build and metagame depending on which cards you think are worth building around or
yeah.
watching out for. So it's
Like
definitely
I think
possible.
that's one key difference about Fuvulos versus Maxi. Like I think you can genuinely come up with, like, in a lot of decks you can come up with a line that is like reasonable under Fuvulos, whereas like under Maxi all of those things were still losing, right? Like you end on IP plus another monster against Maxi, you give them like 3 draws, it's like, well, I still lose anyways. But under Fuvulos you can do that in most decks with like 1 draw. And then there's like, they're just playing like with a normal hand, right? They have their normal 6 cards, you have your non-engine plus your IP or whatever, and you're probably okay.
Yeah, sure.
And Centurion, like the new Centurion 8, I don't know if you've seen it, but the new Centurion 8 searches in the Emblema card, right? And that's huge because it makes Centurion Atri, a card released in Info, a lot better, because Atri draws you a card on summon if you have a Emblema and a Centurion in the graveyard. So making the Emblema card searchable means that as soon as you set that up, you're going to draw an extra card every single turn, not just on your turn, but also your opponent's, because they always come out from your spell and trap zone. So I can see Centurion being this kind of mid-rangey, grindy option that it's honestly, it's the kind of deck that I would really enjoy. So I'm hoping it's good, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I think that Centurion has always had the advantage of being one card combos that are, just nice advantage, good resource loop, as well as being able to disrupt your opponent with all the generic
Mhm.
stuff. And I think this draw card actually sounds sick. So, I mean, if you're doing that with like hand traps, like Bestials and stuff into potentially Snake Eye again or
Yeah.
U-Bell, then I mean, that could be pretty clutch, right? Like, it sounds like it's going to be a decent option.
It's an option at least for the people that don't want to play Snake Eye or Ubel, or maybe like don't have access to the Fiendsmith cards. But like, I mean, you're still gonna play Fuwalos, I guess. But I feel like I guess that is a thing for every deck, like an issue.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Um, is it time to move into some Master Duel gaming?
I think meta-wise we've covered the most relevant stuff. Yeah, if you don't wanna give some even the smallest bit of attention to like Six Samurais or something like that, then we can move on.
You can tell us a little bit
That's
about
fine.
that because I don't know anything about 6M.
I do agree with you. Most of the other things are probably just like honorable mentions. Like I think the Six Samurai stuff does end up making like a solid tier 2 to tier 3 combo deck. I don't think it's going to be better than the combo decks we already have. I think Mimighoul is a very unique and cool strategy. I don't think it's going to end up being super meta relevant in terms of like top tier, but it's definitely playable, like also tier 2 to tier 3, and something to be messed around with. But Dominus Impulse like messes that deck up badly.
We did
The
quite a bit
one
of a deep dive into Mimighoul last episode, so
yeah,
if you
yeah.
guys listening do want to pay attention to that, we do have like a pretty significant segment on Mimighoul,
Yeah.
just Mimighoul last episode. But
Mhm.
TLDR, my prediction, absolutely, I think that deck is really strong. I think it's a solid rogue deck. I think it'll absolutely get a couple of tops here and there over this next format. Impulse is a huge issue for sure.
Yeah.
Just depends on how popular that card is and how many Tenpai matchups you get, I suppose. But nah, I think the Mimighoul support was everything you could ever want in a deck without,
That's
just
fair enough.
straight up,
Yeah, they're
without straight up just making it busted, like
yeah.
unreasonably broken. It's solid
It's
stuff.
even without waiting for them to perform or not, I think you can definitely call it one of the more successful designs on TCG exclusives, just based on the hype that it has created and all that kind of stuff. It's just something that people care about and people like the design of and people are looking forward to. So I think that's a win in my book. Volcanics is worth mentioning, I suppose. We do finally get the Fire King Volcanics, which is a card that all the Master Duel people will already be very familiar with. My issue with Volcanics, like I really like the card and I really like the Fire King deck. And people are going to play Volcanics in Fire King Snake Eye. My only issue with it is that it doesn't really like if Snake Eye Fire King on a scale of 1 to 10 is an 8 right now, then Volcanics makes it like an 8.5 or something. Like that card is good, but it's not one of those cards that blows the deck out of the water, makes it incredibly powerful.
Really, not that big of a jump. You don't think?
I
Like,
don't think so. I even like to put it into context. I was before Worlds in Master Duel. I was trying different versions of the deck, and I was sometimes I took out Volcanics because I was trying to save on the. I didn't want to play the brick, the OG Garunix. So I was testing versions without it. So like it's not even like a guaranteed staple. I think, but it's a good card.
interesting. Okay, that's fair. I think like Alchonix is past its time anyway, right? Like if there was a time to
Yeah,
shine for Snake Eye Fire King, I don't know. I
yeah,
feel like the card should have just been released earlier. It's kind of odd that it's coming out now.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, that's
I
just
mean,
a
you
strange
could argue
choice.
it's not the worst time for it because Snake Eye Fire King is actually still viable, right? So it's like it's not too late, but it could have been earlier.
It's just like weird, like the like choice to like what was the delay about? I like
Yeah,
it
it's
just
like the end of the year of fire. Yeah, it's yeah, it's true.
it's kind of bizarre. Um, yeah, so I think that's all of the honorable mentions, and yeah, we did do a super big deep dive on Mimighoul, and I know a lot of you are super hyped
Mhm.
and interested in that deck. So please do check out the previous episode if you haven't already, because we did talk extensively about some of that. Buy your Kinkabillos. I'm telling you, that card is crazy. Trust me, that thing's gonna go
Do
hard.
not, do not.
So yeah, Master Duel. By the time you guys see this video or see this podcast, you may or may not have gotten a little taster from Some of the streams and stuff of Tenpai being here. We're going to be doing a duel room tomorrow, which is super exciting. I can't wait to watch some Tenpai mirrors. That's going to be fun. Tenpai is the big boogeyman, so let's start with that. Tenpai is a deck that most of you are probably aware of from the TCG, but it is a very unique deck for those of you who only play Master Duel. Tenpai is a go second, willing blind second strategy, similar to, I suppose, Makanko, but significantly stronger, shall we say. It is a deck that can do 30,000 plus damage easily. It has access to prosperity. It can easily run Shifter. One card combo that results in tens of thousands of damage. Hand trap you 4 times. Normal summon Pedra. Shake my hand. And that's been a type of deck that people can kind of sort of understand and deal with in the TCG space because, you know, you can kind of prepare for it. You have options in your side deck. But in best of one, that's going to be... that's different, especially where they want to lose the coin flip, so you willingly choose to go first. Because if they make you start, you can kind of assume, okay, Tenpai, I can, like, build a certain board around it. I can make a certain extract monster that beats it. But now, if they lose the coin flip, you choose to go first, like, Tenpai is in a very advantageous spot.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. It's a deck that obviously people choose to deal with in best of 3 by like making them start, for example, because you know what's gonna happen. And it kind of like people enter this sort of mind game where the Tenpai decks have been playing cards for going first, specifically siding them in when they think that their opponent is gonna make them start, right? They would like play cards like Heat Wave or Solemn Judgment or those kind of things. And it's like we just don't have this sort of mind game in Master Duel. There's just nothing stopping people from just queuing Tenpai and going blind second with it all day, unless they obviously face the mirror match, which is a big issue, I think, when you're playing Tenpai in Master Duel and the deck is overly popular, which I don't know, it might be. Like at least it feels like one of the decks that is the most hyped currently. Like it's like hyped in the not only positive hype, but like people really are like waiting either in anticipation or like either happy or in fear of Tenpai coming to Master Duel tomorrow. It feels like one of the most anticipated decks in recent months.
Yeah, and it's because of that best of one, I think, just makes it so terrifying that you can easily just have like an instant non-game because of Tenpai, utilizing things like Shifter, losing the coin flip, making you start, and just, you know, having so many board breakers or ways to beat you. It's I can see a lot of people finding massive frustrations with Master Duel now that Tenpai is going to drop. So it'll be interesting to see what happens metagame wise on Master Duel. Because I think it's just such a different game in best of one. But yeah, Tenpai is huge. Tenpai is game changing, and one of the few decks that have been released in Master Duel with a pre-hit, putting Sangan summoning to 2 copies before the deck has even been released.
Yeah, and that sounds, you make it sound all good, like, oh, they pre-hit the deck.
I'm not making it sound all good.
No, yeah, like, but you gotta realize that deck is, even with 1 copy of the field spell, absolutely meta in the TCG right now, and was meta in the OCG with 1 copy of the field spell, to the point where they hit it even harder now in the OCG, and I think people are still playing it. Yeah, field spell to 2, it is a hit, but it's just not a significant one, right? But I guess that is to be expected. They do want the deck to be good, of course. But I think it remains to be seen how bad it's really going to be, because I do think there are certain decks that if Tenpai makes up like 30% of your ladder experience or something, you can realistically just switch to some decks, because like there's decks that have good Tenpai matchups. It's not like Tenpai just beats everything, no questions asked, right? There are decks where if they go first, they are so dangerous that Tenpai does not beat them, right? So like those kind of decks could be looking a lot like better now with Tenpai being in the mix.
Speaking of new decks, and a deck that could potentially be a contender for Tenpai is Ritual Beast. A brand new wave of support is available, taking Ritual Beast from a kind of sort of average, okay-ish playable deck back in 2015 to some really, really big stuff now, like the Spiritual Beast Lara, absolute custom card, incredible support for the deck, making topping, I think, almost I think it has topped every single major event since its release.
I'm pretty sure.
Um,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
and
there's been at least 1 or 2 Ritual Beast players in some top cuts everywhere.
yeah,
The only
so
thing here is I think we're looking at this maybe with a little bit of TCG brain right now, where the deck has admittedly been very, very strong. But I'm looking at it from the perspective of, well, the deck is also at this power level, I think, in the OCG, and it's just I don't really see it there. And I do think the deck is terrible into Maxi. Like you can't really get anything done in
they don't have a Herman Hansen over there, and they aren't making Baguska enough. That's their problem.
maybe there's lines around it. Actually, I'm not too familiar with like I'm familiar with Ritual Beast, but I haven't played it myself and like learned the intricacies of how to play through like certain hand traps and stuff like that. Maybe there's a world because I do think the deck is good into Tenpai in some ways because it doesn't care about shifter and it actually has like decent disruption versus the Tenpai deck because you have the Link 4 I think can interact with the field spell quite well. You can just banish it and then you can just use the trap card to just pop all their things. Like it's quite I think it's possible that Ritual Beast is meta viable. I'm worried about Maxi with this kind of deck.
Yeah, I think the deck has it doesn't have a deck out strategy. I'm pretty sure, because all of the ritual beasts are restricted to one summon of
Yeah.
their name per turn. So you're definitely not decking out with ritual beast. But you do have a really powerful card that is still in Master Duel and actually recently returned to TCG, which is probably a huge portion of why the deck is so strong. You have Arch Nemesis Protoss, which is searchable through Flame Banshee, just a generic rank 4, gets you into Flag, into Protoss. And then Master Duel Ladder, where the best deck is Yubel to an extent right now. Is probably just Rebel. You can call Dark. But against Tenpai, it's best of one. It's hard to tell because when you're going first and you win the coin flip, you don't know what your opponent's playing. If your opponent's playing 40 cards, maybe it's worth calling Fire. It could be Tenpai.
I mean, if they send you first, then you'll always be calling Fire.
That's the easy one. But yeah, you also have an option as Colossus as well. You can play the Nemesis monsters for that. And Ritual Beast is just really strong if you are willing to sit down and put a lot of time and effort into learning the combos, because it is a difficult deck. There's a lot of lines, a lot of variations of the lines. But the advantage is
a wonderful thing about Master Duel is you can't accidentally like bring back 2 of the same name or something like in a turn. Like that is one issue.
A genuine concern.
Like when you play it or when you play against it in the TCG, you just have to be so careful of like which names have already happened and stuff like that. And like at this point they play like I don't know 12 different names or something, and you'd be like, has this one been special summoned before in your 15-minute turn, sir? Like it's not going to be an issue in Master Duel, which is cool.
Yeah, so the best thing about Ritual Beast, for those of you who have been anticipating the release, is it's very unlikely people are going to be hand trapping you correctly anyway. I expect to see a lot of imperms and veilers come down on Ritual Beast
on
Elder.
Yeah.
Even just on
I guess tip, don't do that.
Yeah, it's weird. Even on Canahawk, I assume people are going to do that and just, tag out for cost to dodge the Imperm Veiler. So, make sure you hold your Imperm and Veilers for... I'll give you the little spoiler. Kimon Falco was a pretty reasonable choke point. So that's a good one to link to. But yeah, it's a deck that utilizes the rank 4 engine to get into Protoss or Colossus. And it does just have really good synergies in its own right versus Yubel. The Link 4, which we saw, played a massive role in the feature match at YCS Lima, for those of you who may have saw it. Not being able to tribute monsters is a pretty significant thing for Yubel.
To activate effects, you actually can tribute monsters still. It depends how you tribute them.
Right. That's a good point.
So you can still Nibiru because that doesn't tribute to activate, but you can't use like Samsara D Lotus,
Yeah, so against Yubel, you can't use Lotus, you can't negate with Phantom, and as we saw in the TCG, you can't use Requiem to access your Fiendsmith engine. So there's a decent amount of synergies there for sure. And I think
lore-wise, I think it's meant to counter Infernoids.
Lore-wise, so they're part of the Gusto kind of realm, part of Dual Terminal.
I think they're the same lore as Infernoids, and I think they're like enemies.
Does it stop what's it called? Ritual summoning?
What? No.
The Link 4 tributes?
No.
It doesn't
No,
stop ritual summons? Okay.
because they don't. The ritual spells usually don't tribute for cost.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, so lore-wise, with that out of the way, Ritual Beast is coming, and just I guess for anyone who currently is present, we'll be streaming tomorrow with the new pack, and Herman's gonna give us a little masterclass on the deck, so that should be
Ooh,
fun.
nice.
And as for
Yeah.
Tenpai, well, yeah, I guess those were the two main decks. There's also a third deck, unless you want to say anything else about Ritual Beast.
No, but like, I mean, there's more than just one, right? Which one are you referring to?
Decks. There's we're getting Goblin Bikers, we're getting Big
Yeah.
Gabonga, and
True.
and we're getting Infernoid as well.
Yeah.
Some Infernoid support.
Yeah. What was there anything else in the, because the Ritual Beast and Infernoid cards, they came out at the same time in the TCG. Did that set have anything else that might also be in this pack?
Like in terms of staples and stuff.
Yeah, because it was the Battles of Legends set. Was it just Ritual Beast and Infernoid?
I'm
Oh, it had
scared.
the new Ice Barriers and Gen X's, but those are already out. Okay, yeah, I guess. Okay, so these are just like the remainders of the pack. Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, so not sure about that. I'm always like very uncomfortable to ask like like what is coming to Macedo, because what is a leak and what isn't a leak. So
Oh yeah, I mean, no, I meant like, because whenever these packs come out, we don't know the full like card list. We only know like what they announced, the cover
Mhm.
cards basically. And I was wondering if there was like another archetype in that Battles of Legends, but it was Gen X and Ice Barrier, but we already have those. Okay.
So yeah, Big Gabonga's coming. Thoughts on him?
Um, I have heard good things in the sense that, like, I genuinely have not played Goblin Bikers. But I've heard that it's supposed to be a very fun deck. So I'm glad that like Master Duel will give me the chance to try it, because I just haven't gotten around to like building it in paper and going to locals with it or something. But I'm sure it's not going to be on my priority. Like, I'm going to be dealing with the other decks first. But eventually, I'll probably like play it for a little bit and see how it feels. But I've been told it's fun.
From what I know, that they have like a really insane support cards. I mean, I don't know if it's really insane. It's good for the deck anyway. That it's coming out in Rage of the Abyss. I know Poplar came out early in Master Duel. Technically, it's the same time as Phantom Nightmare. It did. Anyone know if we're getting Goblin Bikers Badass? I think it was called, or Gone Wild. I think is the TCG name. That could be a
I
huge addition. No
I do
leaks
not
if
know.
we
It's
don't know.
definitely not announced at this
It's not
point.
announced. So
Yeah.
there's a world maybe we'll get that. That could be actually really significant. But yeah, Goblin Biker is really cool. It is genuinely a decent deck. Again, people sometimes don't know where to hand trap it.
Hmm.
3-axis stuff that ends on like, I think like multiple steals, as well as if you want to, because like you play like the XC cards as well. If you want, you can like attach one, and then you can go up into the XC engine. So it has a lot of stuff going for it. It's just
It
weaker
sounds
than.
fun. It sounds fun, but like fun does not always equal competitively viable. So
Yeah,
we'll have to
exactly.
see about that. Yeah. But it's something like, that's the cool thing about Master Duel. Like, it's so much easier to just try something, like get the cards and play a couple games with it. I don't know. I'm not assuming that the Goblin Bikers are going to be the high rarity in this set. I think it's most of the ultras are going to go towards like Tenpai and Ritual Beast probably.
Don't
Like
these packs
we know
usually
Big
have
Kabonga
like?
is an ultra, but like other than that, I don't.
I just can't get over that name. Do these packs have like 10 ultras or something? Because they're like, is this like a selection pack, or what is it called?
I don't think it's always the same number. I think they're like, they
13.
sometimes
God.
vary.
Chats.
13 different ultras. I mean, we only know what, 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, we know 5. So I guess, I mean, I think Tenpai is gonna have at least like 3.
Dude, it's crazy that like Tenpai is like the actual just dirt commons deck in TCG. And now it's
Not
like
anymore, dude.
not
Fuwalos
anymore.
and Perulia are also making it an expensive deck now.
Yeah.
It's like, it's funny because I was looking at YCS little like, like on the website I was looking at, it always lists the price next to the deck, right? And like the Tenpai decks are like usually around like $300 to $400, I think. And then you think about like Fuwalos just like doubles that.
It's the full deck, yeah. The interesting thing about the ultra rares is I think Sangan summoning is in a peculiar spot because I think that if Sangan summoning is a low rarity card, that's a
Hmm.
good thing because it means that it's likely to get hit sooner.
Yeah.
Generally, I think is what the because I know like Primeval Planet Perla Rhino. By the way, have you ever heard anyone refer to that card as PPP?
No, but I saw your reaction to someone doing that.
Now you have. So that card was released at 1, I believe, last year, and it's only now getting banned. So
But we never had 3 Pearl Rhinos in Master Duel?
I don't think so, right, Chan? I'm pretty sure that was release
Oh,
limited.
you might be right. I just like it's been so long that I don't remember this at all.
Yeah. So it
Crazy.
has it's been a limited card for a long time. So Sangan summoning, listen, best case scenario, common Sangan summoning. Let's go. Bad next list. Give it like 20 days or something.
Yeah, it's one of those it's one of those instances again where like are they gonna do the thing where they don't want to hit the cards that they make ultra rares, right?
Hmm.
I mean, you can say whatever you want, but like the Transcendent Dragon being an ultra rare obviously makes sense, but it is really nice because you only need one copy of that card.
Yeah, that's the
Um,
good stuff. So like Retarai, for example, has been confirmed to be an ultra.
yeah.
Knowing my luck, I can't wait to pull 10 copies of Flame Tongue Burning Blade. I didn't even know what this card was until they
Yeah,
announced
we
it.
don't have it in the TCG yet. Actually,
Really? Okay, cool.
it's an OCG exclusive at the moment. Yeah, that Link 2, the fire one.
Woo! Oh, tomorrow's gonna be so hype. It's my birthday as well. I just realized. Wow, what a great present! I get to pull 10 copies of Flame Tongue. That's awesome. We can talk about the ban list a little bit, I suppose, because it is also live tomorrow, and
It's
they're
an exciting
significant.
day tomorrow in general. Like this Thursday that I have chosen to not be home for is like everything. Like you got one of the more impactful sets of the year releasing the TCG. You got a new Master Duel pack that has crazy stuff in it. You've got a new ban list in effect that was actually one of the bigger ones. It's a crazy day tomorrow.
Yeah, a couple of did we talk about the ban list on the podcast? I don't think we did, right?
No, because that happened after Lil,
Okay,
and we haven't had
well,
one.
let's talk about the significant ones. I want to say is
Yeah.
probably Poplar to 1. What do we think this does?
I think
Makes it a
Poplar to one
garnet
is
for
solid.
sure.
I think Poplar to one is solid. I liked it. I mean, that's what it is now in every format.
Yeah,
Um,
easier to
and I
track.
think that's where it belongs. I tend to not like these sort of variance inducing things where if you now draw the Poplar, your deck sucks, and if you just don't draw it, it doesn't make that much of a difference. But I mean, since most of the other things are already at 1, and they somehow like they're just tiptoeing around banning Flamberge or original Sinful Spoils, right? In all 3 formats. And it's just like, well, if you're not going to do that, then I guess you got to limit Poplar.
Yeah, makes sense. The most significant I want to say is probably Phantom to 2.
I think
Feel
Pearl Rhino to 0 is the most impactful
Oh
hit.
yeah, actually, let's talk a little bit about that. So, Perla Rhino ban is, I want to say, as a tier player, you should be very happy that they banned
Yeah,
Perla Rhino because that
yeah,
could have been so much worse.
yeah,
This deck is very playable, but the Primeval Planet ban is, I think, yeah, just this Jesse did this. Uh, the ability to have the synergies of the Horus cards and the 60 pile stuff and the discards and using the Crystal Beast Trap or the Trivikarma to get you into a name is like massively significant. It's also a huge power downgrade because
yeah.
you lose the pop, and yeah, like you still have Kit Koloss, you still have the names, and I think you should definitely breathe a sigh of relief that it was just Perla Rhino that got hit.
It's
Significant
one
hit.
of those it's
Go
one
on.
of those cards that wasn't really at 1 because of how easily they would search it with like Foolish Goods into Trivikarma or just milling the Trivikarma or the Rainbow Bridge. So like they would have access to that card significantly more often than just like a random one of in their deck. Even the Visas level 8 Synchro, right, can search it. So I think it's an impactful hit, but once again, like Kick Kolos could have been banned a while ago and they chose not to do that. So like it's if you're a fan of tier limits, I think that's as easy as you can get away, honestly.
I honestly, I was expecting Shiren to move closer to 1 in that
Mhm.
direction as well. That didn't even happen.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big hit in and of itself, but it's also kind of not a hit in some ways too. So it's
I think people are. I think it leaves the deck in a place where you can at least still mess around with it.
absolutely, yeah.
Whether it's going to be playable, like I mean, whether it's going to be top tier, like viable anymore, remains to be seen. I think it might not, but I think it's definitely still good enough to like ladder with, and I think that's important.
Yeah, and that is a huge part because you have a lot of tools still available. They didn't hit Snow. They didn't hit Curious. They didn't hit Elf. They didn't hit Grass.
Yeah.
They didn't hit all of these different, cards that really give that insane power to Tier Lament. And
Yeah.
I think a consistency hit is probably warranted, but oh my god, I cannot believe Snow is still alive.
Yeah, that card is crazy. I just got FTK'd on stream today with against the Snow, where they banished like 40 cards and then arrow sharked me twice with Snow.
Yeah, I still haven't managed to pull that off once yet. It's probably just the old man APN.
You should queue into me, then it's gonna work. Don't worry.
I'll find a way. Yeah, so Perlariga, definitely the new card for sure. It gives 500 attack, just like Primeval, just like PPP. So yeah, make sure you guys play that. Other than that, we got a couple of neat like roguish stuff. Crazy to think that Enchantress is just now at 3-3 and TCG as well. Never really played. Well, not never really played, but hasn't been playing in a very long time. Now I think Aramesia is also at 3 chat, right? So you have just like full power Enchantress,
full power adventure in both TCG and Master Duel. I think the OCG might still have a hit left somewhere. Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the OCG still has Griffin banned.
Really? Oh wow.
Maybe. Maybe not. They definitely did ban it at some point. I don't know if it returned, but I don't think it did. But yeah, like I feel like it's hard to argue that the adventure cards have been power crept in since their release. It was always something that people at the time people asked for them to get hit in the TCG, and they just never did it, and it just turned out to be fine. I think Master Duel is kind of like in the same spot. Although I will say I do like the way the OCG handled this. I think Griffin being banned is like the optimal solution to this entire thing, because I was always like, I never liked the Omni Negate. That was the only thing. The other parts of it were fine, but yeah.
I think at the time, yeah, for sure, but it's kind of weird now how like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play 6 cards in my deck for this one Omni.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, like it just feels like I compare it a lot to Fiendsmith just to see how much of a far cry we've gone in terms of engines and packages.
Engine powers,
yeah.
It's fair. It's fair enough to like the cards are probably okay to be unlimited for now. But yeah.
This might surprise you. You know what deck I'm really looking forward to messing around with?
What is that?
I'm looking forward to mess around with like Thunder Piles. So we got Colossus up from 1, which is really really good in pure Thunder. And
but was the problem like you didn't have a second one?
No, probably not. But it is kind of cool because if you want to play like a combo Chaos version, it means you can overlay Colossus for Vampire, do some snow stuff. Trigger some Thunders. Chaos Space is at 3 copies too, and Gold Sark is up to 2. So there's some tools there.
I can see it. I would love to be in a world where those are the combo decks I'm worried about, actually.
Yeah, so there is like I think this really is like the biggest shakeup of Master Duel we've had in a long time.
It tends to be this. It tends to be the like post Worlds, post DC Cup ban list that is the biggest one. I think last year it was the same way. Because they tend to just hit some of the decks that were the most successful during Worlds and the first DC Cup of the season. Which they did as well. Like they banned Ibli from the Ubel locking stuff. They banned Jaugen for I think mainly branded. They limited Patchy because of how much stun people have been using. Even at Worlds, people brought stun.
What is the deal with that? Why, like, don't you, if you really want to play, don't you just swap it out for a statue? Right? Like,
yes, but I mean, that's never been an argument, has it, for not hitting floodgates because there's replacements?
I mean, I get that, but it's just like really like Fossil Dino of all cards is like, I don't know. I just think of like how top 100 is like 80% Ubel Snake Eye, and then there's just okay, we're gonna limit Fossil Dino, which is easily replaced. It's slightly bigger. I don't know. I just love having Patchy on my my thumbnails, man. Yeah,
I mean, you can still do it. It's still that one.
yeah, once per format, like break in case of emergency, rent's due. Gotta make a
I
stun
think that's
video.
the I think that's the argument I heard that actually made the most sense to me is like the reason why at one specifically is weird is because there's been some decks that actually search it and those can still do it. But like the stun decks that the hard draw it don't get to do that anymore. They just replace it with another floodgate,
Yeah,
right? Which is
another
that's
one.
weird. That's definitely weird.
It is for sure. All right. I think that's it. There's nothing else here. I suppose we could.
I mean, we haven't mentioned the Ubel hits here, but they are quite
Did we not talk about Yubel?
smallish.
I thought we did.
You
Okay,
just said
yeah.
Phantom of Ubel was significant, but like that's
Yeah,
like
so
way
like
too
what
much.
does that practically mean? I don't know. Does that like completely shut down some lines, but niche lines, but
Just-
enough to still be playable?
So for both Snake Eyes, Fire King, and Ubel, I think they both remain playable and pretty good. I think that is my only gripe with this list. I actually quite like it, except for I wish they touched both of those decks a little harder, just a little, not actually by that much, because Ubel isn't even as oppressive as it is in the TCG and Master Duel at all, because we don't have Fiendsmith yet, we don't have Varudras. So like the deck isn't even as much of a monster as it is in the TCG. It's not as much of a powerhouse. Like it's more beatable, even if it gets to combo. Like you can actually realistically break a Ubel board depending on like how they play it. But they both get away relatively easy from this one. Like two Beckoning Beasts, two Opening is slight consistency hits, but by no means like bad. And two Phantom of Ubel is like fine. That card should have been limited. Then I would have been happy.
That's the issue, though. I feel like Phantom of Yubel limit is, that's a heavy hit.
Dude, that card should have been once per turn anyways. So we're just like fixing it without errataing it.
True. I mean, the one thing that annoys me, like genuinely annoys me about this list, is like Kirin to 2. Like that is like just such a non-hit.
It's the same thing they did in the OCG, and I agree. 2 Kirin is weird because that was already like, for example, my list only had 2 that I brought to Worlds. Like it's
Oh,
not
really?
even unless yeah, you don't have to play 3.
Sick. All right. They just wanted the Josh ratio. Makes sense.
Yep.
Free ultra rare. I guess so.
That's the only positive thing. They actually do hit a decent amount of ultra rares on this one, right? Like you do have Poplar to 1, Perla Rhino to 0, Phantom to 2, and Kirin to 2. Those are all ultras. So like you do get a fair amount of crafting points back. They're actually hitting ultra rares, which is cool.
Yeah, it's to help you guys get your points together to craft the playset of Ultra, Pedras, Fadras, your two Sign-Gan summonings,
Yeah.
your Biden Dragon.
All of it's gonna be ultra.
Yeah.
Early.
And Change of Heart to 3. Is there anything there? We've got 3 change. We have 3 mind control. We have 3 snatch. Like that's stealing only. That's you can take a lot of cards.
Stealing only. I mean, I don't know if anyone's gonna try to build a. I mean, Tenpai. We do have a blind second deck happening right now, so like maybe there's someone who wants to build Tenpai in that way. Typically, not playing those kind of cards, at least for us in the TCG, but. I do like Change of Heart at 3. I think it's one of those cards that has just been gradually moving up the ban list in most formats, and it's just never been an issue. But it has seen a little bit of play here and there, which I feel like is the perfect kind of thing. Like that's what I want to see from unhits. Is I want them to be playable and sometimes relevant, but not like obviously broken or something. Like I think that's good.
Did you see the Trap Tenpai deck that topped Lille?
Yes.
That was crazy. Someone played
first Tenpai is
Go
crazy.
first Tenpai with triple Torrential Strike and Duruma Cannon. Listen, I watched the deck profile. He said Torrential Strike is broken, and I'm sitting here like, BA's been doing that for 10 years, baby. Torrential Strike is a staple. But yeah, that was a decision that was made. So shout outs to him.
Maybe that's the goo to beat other Tenpais.
That's the thing, like best of 1 format in Masadu, you play Trap Tenpai, like you just go first anyway, or the Tenpai player makes you start.
I wonder how many people are gonna make you start just because like they're scared of Tenpai.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like they've just had it. I'm sure like whenever you play Master Duel from now on, the next couple months at least, you're gonna at some point just be sent first randomly by someone who's just lost like 3 Tenpai matches in a row and they've just had enough.
And then won't even
And
be
you're just
playing
over there
Tenpai.
playing your normal Yu-Gi-Oh deck that wants to go first anyways. You're going first, and then your opponent takes their turn, and they're just like on Snake Eyes or something. And you're just like, and you just know like, oh, that guy's been through something.
It'd be funny to see like a lab player go second. That's when you know it's down bad. Been lightning stormed too many times. Speaking of lab, Eradicator went to 3. It was searchable anyway, but
Yeah.
I think the biggest buff this is like layer. This is technically a layer deck.
Technically, it buffs Trap Trick, but I think most people haven't been using 2 anyways. So like, this is one of those cards where if you're not gonna ban it, then who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. So super exciting time to play Master Duel. Probably a really good time to hop back in. Honestly, like there's enough shake-up here for it to be worth jumping into, and I'm gonna be learning Ritual Beast. Like that deck is very 5-head, but it'll be some good exercise for my rotting brain, and I'm super hyped to play Ritual Beast. I think it's very strong. Yep.
I think overall, I think Tenpai is going to be obviously for some people it's going to be annoying, but I think the most important thing to know is that you do really just need to sit down and learn how to play against it, because there's a lot of small things. I would say generally Tenpai is looked upon as a deck that like doesn't take that much skill to pilot and stuff like that. Like people are saying that constantly. I think where the majority of the skill lies in Tenpai is the people playing against it. There's a decent bit of skill expression um if you're playing against Tenpai, I think.
Yeah, I think that's like at least one of the positive factors when you're playing against it. Unless they specifically have Sangan summoning. That's going to be
Yeah, even that card, I mean, you'd have to like, depending on the deck, you'd have to like prioritize using your SP Little Knight on the Sangan summoning so that you can use your other disruptions on the monsters and stuff like that. Not every game against Tenpai is winnable. You know, sometimes they just have it, and that's the ones that like feel bad, right? But like sometimes there's I see people definitely throw away games that could easily be won against Tenpai.
the thing I'm worried about is I think it's really hard to misplay Tenpai and Master Duel specifically. Like
you just have to click the thing that comes up on your screen, yeah.
Right. That's kind of the thing, right? Like I'm trying to like because in TCG you could just like forget to like do stuff, and you know that's just the way it is. But
you just click the locations that are glowing yellow right now, yeah.
Like unironically, like that's it. Like it's wild. So you know, Tenpai.
We'll see how it turns out. We'll see how it turns out.
All right, I think that's a wrap for today.
Yep.
We're pretty much good to go on this one. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Appreciate the patience for not uploading last week. Again, apologies. It just sometimes like two grown-ass adults just have so much going on. Hopefully we'll get another bonus episode in between at some point just to make sure that we're ahead on recording. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, for sure we're going to have Team Samurai on at some point. I think that's
YCS champion now.
He is a champion. So he is... when you see those videos go up that say tier 0 best deck, you have to take that seriously now. You have to consider that, and you have to listen now.
Yeah, that's the downside. That's the downside.
So yeah, he's most likely going to be on at some point next week, and we can have Sam on the podcast. That'll be fun. And yeah, stay tuned for more announcements. Join the Discord. Patreon is a singular $1 to get access, and you can hang out and give us some Patreon questions in the future, which I don't think I did one this week. My bad. Whoops. But yeah, we'll be back soon, and hope you've been enjoying Master Duel. Leave a comment down below with your favorite Tenpai staple that you've lost to this weekend. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace out, good night, and
Peace.
see ya.